This used to be a very serious world of cultivating immortals. Seeking immortals, riding dragons and crossing phoenixes, as well as cultivating immortals through demonic sects, killing and looting treasures. It wasn't until 400 years ago that a thing called the main god merged with the heavenly way, and the art style of this traditional world of immortality and chivalry changed. The alchemist studies quantum communication to the bald head while creating a magic version that can be scaled up to. The emerging profession known as card printing master, derived from Fudao, relies on the power of binding and beard to fight invincibly. Keywords of the novel. No pop-up window for the era of cultivating immortality in the great heavens. Download the complete TXT collection of the era of cultivating immortality in the great heavens, and read the latest chapters of the era of cultivating immortality in the great heavens. Chapter 1. Kyushu New Era. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Kyushu New Era. Kyushu World, Red Cloud Cave Sky. The year 83335 in the ancient calendar and 1628 in the Xianmeng calendar. The sky was clear blue, and cultivators flew back and forth on various strange mounts. From time to time, one can still see the rainbow left by the high-ranking cultivators on their way, which makes the cultivators who have to comply with the Qixia Cave Immortal Beast Flight Traffic Management Regulations envious. There are various caves arranged in rows. The Yujian Inn here has an ancient style and charm, and even the tables are made of pear blossom wood that has been around for hundreds of years. The Old Lu barber shop next to it has already used the fully automatic symbol thread hair clipper, and adding 5 methods can also experience a virtual reality hairstyle replacement with a realism of 99% and a coolness of 500%. Li Hao, wearing a summer school uniform, lazily carried a shoulder bag and looked at the liquid crystal screen across the street with a huff. On the screen is a discounted advertisement for the 1628 version of the 9 Heavens and 10 Earth space shuttle, reportedly traveling at a speed of 300 million miles per hour. My classmate Cheng Ting is still nagging. I really don't understand why an airship is called an airship. It has 4 wheels, shouldn't it be called a flying car? And this thing is a dual drive of Lingjing nuclear energy, which can also be suspended on the ground. What's the use of wheels? Li Haosher was not interested in the origin of these names, but he wanted to ruin his friend's conversation and casually asked. How did you estimate the score? My Taoist scripture is bleeding. Everything else is fine, overall it's playing normally. I really can't remember the second to last question on the principles and practices of cultivation, so I wrote a few sentences to give it a hard score. Then the answers to the principles of magic, common sense and precautions in other realms were also average. I estimate that the last 12 doors add up to around 950. After Cheng Ting finished speaking, he changed his tone and asked reluctantly. And you? I also have a blood breakdown. What is the score for speaking human language? 1070, mainly, this year's Taoist scriptures are quite difficult. Damn it, you. Watching the originally carefree and happy boy fall into autism, Li Hao's lips curled slightly as he gained a peaceful atmosphere. Happiness has not disappeared, it just spreads between us. Li Hao and Cheng Ting are both high school seniors in the Dao Biao class of Qixia Dongtian, a subsidiary of Xianmeng. 3 days ago, they completed an important cultural examination for all Xianmeng students. As the Dao Biao class, they also have to participate in the exploration of the world half a month later, and then decide which university they can apply to based on their scores that match their academic performance. A road sign refers to a person who can serve as a road sign for crossing the world. This world used to be a very prosperous immortal world, with countless treasures and immortal sects scattered throughout the 9 states, 4 seas, and 8 wastelands. There are many earthly immortals, and human beings who have achieved the fruits of longevity. Even the heavenly immortals and the golden immortals are numerous. Unfortunately, in several consecutive disasters, heaven and earth have been damaged, and the road is lacking. Most of the heavenly immortals and golden immortals, along with their family and disciples, have run away. Those with lower cultivation levels and no background, although they have the same lifespan as the heavenly immortals, can only stay and die together with the broken world. The world is constantly declining. Since the ancient calendar, there have been no new immortals born for 80,000 years, and even scattered immortals have been extremely difficult to achieve in the past 20,000 years. In theory, the next step should be further decline until the extraordinary fades away. The Great Road is 50, and the heavens perform 40.9. The variables have come 4,000 years ago. The shattered light ball named Lord God crashed into a world that appeared to have only upper middle levels but actually had many hidden experts, and then attempted to transform it into its own new base. The heavenly Tao, who was once glorious and now half dead, saw a miraculous medicine and fell into the trap. He sat up in shock from his dying illness, feeling that he could save another wave. The east wind cannot suppress the west wind, and the west wind cannot suppress the east wind. After a brief confrontation, the Lord God felt that he couldn't control the world and wanted to escape, but how could the heavenly Tao, who saw hope, let go of his last hope? It escapes, he chases, it escapes again, he chases again, until it becomes difficult to fly. When the golden phoenix and jade do meet, they surpass countless others in the world. The Lord God and the heavenly way are united and compatible, marking the beginning of a new era of the great heavens in the Kyushu world. The new heavenly way has the ability to scatter Tao signs to other worlds and retrieve them, using the shuttle of Tao signs to help me repair and improve. After experiencing a diverse world, Taoists constantly absorb all knowledge and technology from other worlds, innovate, and carry out reforms in the entire field of cultivation. In just over 2,000 years, the spiritual world has completed the First Practice Revolution, Second Practice Revolution, and New Era Spiritual Revolution. After 3 earth-shattering changes, a large number of new practitioners in the New Era have fundamentally transformed the traditional relationship between immortals and mortals and the backward and inefficient system operation after receiving a large amount of knowledge from other realms. The Immortal Alliance has been established. The era of comprehensive cultivation has arrived. Kyushu has ushered in a great liberation of productivity. In just 1,600 years, Xianmeng completed a revolution in the ancient practice sects, traditional practice concepts, the relationship between immortals and mortals, and the popularization of practice techniques for the benefit of the people. This is a great harmony society where productivity is completely liberated through the advancement of magic. There is no hunger or poverty, and even the lowest level of people have at least 15 square meters of basic living space and sufficient subsidies, ensuring that you can have 4 dishes and 1 soup per meal. Everyone will receive 12 years of basic education, including 12 different subjects and introductory practice. The average life expectancy below the construction period is close to 130 years, and the social crime rate and accidental mortality rate are extremely low. This is a prosperous civilization that countless immortals have never created before, and a beautiful era shared by over 30 billion people. All of this is based on the exploration of Dao Biao. Li Hao was born in such an era and became a reserve Taoist. He used to be a graduate student at a famous 985 university in Blue Star, graduated in 2022, and has been engaged in research work ever since. He died unexpectedly in a research accident in 2049. He has also read many novels about time travel and rebirth, but unlike those protagonists who immediately awaken all their memories after time travel, he is more similar to the awakening of Su Hui. Starting from the age of 10, he continuously awakened memories of his past life for 4 to 5 years, which almost made him think he had hysteria. This actually caused him and his family quite a lot of distress for a long time. Later, after seeing many psychoanalysts and experts in reincarnation, he finally understood. My past life was me, and this life is also me, but this life is more of me than my past life. Hey! 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 I'm not called hello, my name is Chu. Li Hao, who had recovered from his daze, regained his composure and looked at his friend who had found happiness from his autism. What's wrong? The flying boat has arrived. Let's go then. So what exactly is the flying boat? Chengting's chatter began again. The two people who boarded the flying boat found seats by the window. Looking out the window at the beautiful world that he couldn't even dream of in his past life, thinking about the eternal freedom of achieving success in practice, and the wonderful life of crossing different worlds after becoming a Taoist, Li Hao was not confused by his past life. With such a wonderful and diverse world, who wants to go back and wash the test tube? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Card Printers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Card Printers. Li Hao. Hurry up. Hurry up. Look. What kind of thing? Li Hao turned around and saw the dark black scales and red longan outside the window. A winged lizard, about 10 zhang long and estimated to have a tail length of 20 zhang, is almost side by side with a flying boat. There is also a young Taoist wearing a red Taoist robe sitting on his neck. The winged lizard is often referred to as a dragon in many worlds, and there are many similarities in its behavior to common dragon species in the Kyushu region. Therefore, many scholars believe that this species should be classified under the order Pterodactyloidea, but due to strong opposition from the Four Seas Dragon clan, it was ultimately not classified under the dragon class, and instead a new Pterodactyloidea was created, belonging to the reptile class. There are rumors that the Donghai Dragon clan gave a precious pearl that could be used to condense the second primordial god to Jianghu, the dean of the Chaoguang Daoist Academy's Animal Gathering and Extraordinary Biology School, in order to classify the winged pseudo-dragon order as a reptile. Regarding this, Gui Wanshou, the official spokesperson of the Donghai Dragon tribe, stated, "All of this is nonsense. How could the Donghai Dragon clan only give a single bead as a gift? Who do you look down upon? Speaking of which, whether it is the winged pseudo-dragon order or the dragon class winged order, having the word dragon itself is a strong endorsement word. Especially on the side outside the window, it is very lively, guaranteed to be equivalent to a cultivator in the third realm." Li Hao and Chengting were still admiring the agile posture of the black dragon, and the uncle driving the flying boat was no longer willing. He added a amplification technique to himself, and then shook the window of the flying boat and roared. "Turtle Sunday happy. Do you know that Chixia Cave does not allow mounts with a wingspan of more than 5 meters to take off? Uncle seems to have used some Buddhist techniques to hit the head off. Anyway, Li Hao's mind is buzzing with melon seeds. The red-robed Taoist was also a bit embarrassed. He stood up from the dragon neck, lifted the spell that protected him from the wind, and seemed to shout something. But the wind in the sky was too strong, blowing him upside down, and his voice was covered by the noisy wind. He had to make another decision, straighten his cock and robe, and then arch his hand towards the flying boat. The red-robed Taoist took out a purple card from his arms, but couldn't see any incantations or spells he could make. With just a gentle toss, the over 10 zhang long dragon was sucked into the card, which was less than half a foot long and less than 3 inches wide, like flowing water. Subsequently, the red-robed Taoist summoned a cloud and flew slowly, quickly disappearing behind the flying boat. Li Hao. Did you see it? The card printer. This senior is at least a third-level card printer. Handsome and amazing. He must be a teacher at Chixia Academy. Card making and printing studies, and imperial card fighting techniques, are the flagship majors of Chixia University. I heard that Yumeng Shangren from Chixia Academy was the first 4th-level imprinter in Kyushu. There is a secret realm called Dueling Academy in Chixia Academy, which is a holy land for imprinters. If I can get into Chixia Academy, I will definitely learn how to print cards. Have you heard me? Chengting turned to look at his little friend, only to see his expression of constipation. What's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell? Li Hao came to his senses. It's okay, I just seem to know the breed of that fake dragon. It seems to be called a true red-eyed black dragon. By the way, didn't you always say that you wanted your son to follow your father's footsteps to study mecha at Dansha Academy, study rune mecha and manipulation, and become a pilot in the future? Why did you change your mind now? The artificial concave convex man project of Tianji Academy has made significant breakthroughs in the first half of the year and may soon enter small-scale mass production and practical verification. The progress of the virtual machine god at the Puppet God Academy is also impressive. My father's rune mech has just been built on the first aircraft, and they will have to cut funding later. The future is worrying, as the saying goes. Li Hao couldn't see any worry on Qingting's face. Instead, he seemed to suppress his smile, which was truly a father's kindness and filial piety. Card printers have been very popular in the past 2 to 3 decades, but who knows what the market will be like after graduating from university in 12 years. After casually sighing, Li Hao once again started to gossip from Qingting's mouth. Is your father still working on their project? Of course we have to do it. Their boss personally paid a high price to hire a team of mysterious Taoist symbols, asking them to go to the world where they first discovered the wreckage of rune mechs and then pick up scraps to see if they could reap any rewards. But be reasonable. That world itself is already in ruins, experiencing 3 apocalyptic level changes in less than 20 years, and technology and knowledge have long been cut off. Especially in that world, there are a group of strange and bizarre people shouting freedom, civilization, and justice, while fighting against each other and destroying infrastructure without losing money. It's quite interesting. What else do you know about this world? Looking at his friend who seemed quite interested, Qingting couldn't help but talk about sects. This world is a multi-nested plane structure, currently exploring only one outer plane, with the highest energy level reaching the 4th level, which is a large green block. It is estimated that there will be a large number of 5th energy levels on the plane of the nest center, even comparable to the 6th energy level of Sanxian, so exploration and development of it has always been conservative and cautious, and I've heard about it. Just heard about it. Speaking of which, Qingting looked around and saw that there were not many people sitting around before continuing to reveal in the tone of a child telling a horror story. That big green head once killed a golden elixir realm and several Gangsha realms. Several exploration teams were disbanded by him. The Daobiao team that went behind unexpectedly introduced him as a high-quality talent to Kyushu, and it was only when he passed through that he was recognized by the Heavenly Dao as a 4th-level powerhouse. There's no way, everyone has come. The Daobiao team introduced a 4th-level team without prior reporting, and everyone from the captain to the team members was burdened with debt. On the contrary, this person, due to his outstanding knowledge, quickly found a job and is now teaching astronomy and astrology at a university. I think this person must be a cunning, and unscrupulous person who does nothing wrong. Otherwise, can we defeat several experienced Dao Biao teams in a row? Can't it be said that he's just a shy and introverted, kind-hearted scientist with a simple personality and schizophrenia? Is everything just an accident? Li Hao said with a strange expression on his face. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. If that's the case, I'll cut your head off. Qingting's face was full of confidence. I have watched the video of that thing fighting, and it feels like a wild beast with no reason to fight, and the more injured it is, the greener it becomes. Can such a person have any connection with kindness, do you think so? That's it. What do I think? It's just that. Ah, right. I'm here. Li Hao picked up his backpack and shouted to the driver. Master, stop at the intersection ahead. Thank you. Looking back at his close friend, he already had a solemn expression on his face, slightly opening his mouth but not knowing what to say. What's wrong? With a dead expression on his face. Qingting took a deep breath and stared at Li Hao's face. He looked at him for a long time before speaking. Mouse. To explore a new world, we must come back alive. You too. Live well. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Parents. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 3. Parents. With a stroke of the token, the formation was lifted, and Li Hao returned to his affordable small cave of only 1,800 square meters. The Qixia cave is not small, he estimated it to be 400,000 to 500,000 square kilometers. The total population is only over 10 million, which is relatively small in the second-tier caves, and it can be said that the land is vast and the people are sparse. But there are not many places suitable for building caves in the Qixia cave, and the prices are almost close to the first-tier cave. Now he lives in this apartment, which was bought with a loan from Li Hao's parents when they got married. The down payment is 350,000 spirit stones, and for the next 200 years, 10,000 spirit stones will be paid annually. It has been more than 80 years since then. Optimistically, when the cave reaches Li Hao's hands in the future, the mortgage will definitely be paid off. Unhappy viewpoint, if he cannot become the golden elixir realm in the future, he will definitely not live to inherit this cave. Li Hao's father is a heavenly man in the fourth realm of the immortal way, and his mother is a young god in the fourth realm of the immortal way, both of whom have a lifespan of nearly 1,000 years. If Li Hao's cultivation is not successful, then it must be a couple under 30 years old with black hair giving away white hair. The ancient cultivation system in the Kyushu realm is countless, and it can truly be called the three paths of local people and gods with great potential. The three paths all start from practicing qi and end up with the fruits of the heavenly immortal path, which can be called different paths leading to the same goal. Immortal way. After practicing qi, the foundation is built on the upper Dan field, called the Purple Mansion realm. It then passes through the three realms of Yin God, Yang God, and Yuan God, and then crosses the three disasters of wind, fire, and thunder to obtain the fruit of the immortal way. Human immortal path. After practicing qi, the foundation is built on the Zhongnan field, which is called the blood exchange realm. Then, through the four realms of Ningqiao, Tianren, Shentong, and Faxiang, the fruit of the human immortal path is obtained. Di Xian Dao. After practicing qi, the foundation is built in the lower elixir field, which is called the magic realm. Then, after passing through the four realms of Gang Sha, Jin Dan, Yuan Ing, and Hua Shen, the fruit of Di Xian Dao is obtained. Of course, after obtaining the fruit of the three methods, one must practice towards the heavenly immortal and the golden immortal. Nowadays, in the era of continuous communication and integration between the Kyushu realm and the various celestial realms, it is difficult to accurately evaluate the strength of various cultivation systems in the heavens using the traditional three paths and 9 levels of realms. The Xianmeng can only be evaluated based on energy levels. Levels 1 to 6 represent the journey from practicing qi to becoming an immortal, levels 7 represent the achievement of Tao fruit, and levels 8 and 9 correspond to heavenly immortals and golden immortals. This rating system cannot be said to be worthless, at least it is also full of loopholes. But there is not a more precise rating method. The more accurate it is, the easier it is to find counterexamples in the heavens. 1,000 years ago, a true Yuanying spent hundreds of years organizing hundreds of complex and chaotic pages of the evaluation system of various celestial levels. Then this big shot was just preparing to publish his paper, but the new world power system brought back by Daobiao directly overturned the foundation of the paper. 100 years of hard work were destroyed in an instant. This real person was infuriated and became the first high-level cultivator to be diagnosed with mental weakness, making an indelible contribution to the development of psychology in Kyushu. He is the first case on the first page of all relevant textbooks. At this point, there are no more iron-headed babies jumping into the pit of the strength evaluation system. Turn on the lights. With a command, the living room immediately lit up. Li Hao threw his backpack onto the bun and sat in front of the delicious tablecloth before starting to order. Oil-filled earth bear paws, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, braised dragon brisket, and whole green phoenix dragon carp soup. Sigh. This gourmet tablecloth is already an old model from 1612. I'm tired of just a few dishes, so I'll have to change it sooner or later. While eating the dishes made with the tablecloth, Li Hao was already thinking about whether to switch to the 1628 basic version that could make exotic dishes or to add some money and directly serve the plus version that could make the 100-dragon banquet. How about the entire 1626 deluxe package version? Coincidentally, there has been a promotion on the Qixia shopping network recently that offers a 20% discount on Lingshire over 200. It's also possible. Hey! You two are so coincidental, have you come back together? Of course I went to pick up your mother from work. Li's father, who was over 2 meters tall, clung behind Li Hao like an iron tower, blocking his petite mother for the most part. The two of them clearly watched Li Hao eat for a while. Your son, my life exam score is estimated, but you don't even go to pick him up. Do you want me to take a flying boat back by myself? Is it my biological father? I can rest assured when you grow up. But I will never be at ease with your mother. Old Li turned his head and looked at his wife beside him, trying to widen his eyes to convey his love but only getting a white eye. How disgusting. Li Mu is a talented student at Jianghu Academy, a 4th-level alchemist. After graduation, she worked as a teacher at Qixia Academy. She has more than 10 personal prescription patents and has also participated in multiple exotic herb cultivation companies. She is a well-educated by Fume. I don't know how she sees Li's father as a poor and destitute individual with only a few treasures in his total assets. Li's father's cultivation resources from Ningxiao to Tianren were all funded by her, and in the end, he even married with a house, allowing him to directly achieve the peak of his life without struggling for 500 years. Could it be that unfashionable love talk is the ultimate magic weapon of love? Your father and I went to the Pharmaceutical Research Institute of the university and prepared a lot of medicine for you. Old Li, take it out. It's not very eye-catching. Comrade Li went out to take medicine one by one, and Li's mother pointed out the effects one by one, while using magic to mark the usage on top. This is for healing, taken orally. It is for restoring vitality. Wait. Li Hao was a bit confused. The first time the Taoist symbols traveled through different realms, in order to conform to the laws of time and space, they could not have anything extraordinary, and even the Taoist symbols themselves could not have cultivation. I haven't practiced since I was young, but on this day, I can't take the path of breaking the law or committing crimes. Of course I know. Li Mu said angrily. What do you think I've been so busy with these days? These medicines are ordinary herbs without extraordinary properties, but when mixed together, they can have the effect of first grade to top grade. If you go to a different world, as long as it's not in the world of absolute magic, the herbs mixed together can directly absorb the energy of heaven and earth and become extraordinary medicines. Li Hao then carefully examined these herbs. Each large packet of herbs was divided into several small packets, isolated from each other. The small bag is filled with ordinary herbs without any spiritual essence. But when a few small bags come together, they can become extraordinary medicines. This is an extremely clever means. Using first-level spiritual objects to refine first-level elixirs is enough for an alchemist, but there is a difference in success rate and pill completion rate. Refining second-level elixirs with first-level spiritual herbs is essential for master-level alchemists, and it is even more difficult to refine first-level elixirs with non-spiritual herbs. Li Mu and these herbs are all specially made into foolproof operations, which is even more difficult. Even if Li Mu is a 4th-level alchemist, she would have to try countless times to concoct such a herb. She probably worked hard for a long time with these dozen or so herbs. What do parents love their children for? Oh. The plan is far-reaching. Li's father shook his head, seeming quite emotional, but suddenly turned the sad atmosphere into a cheerful one. Li Hao used to feel quite uncomfortable in his heart, but now he suddenly burst out laughing as he watched his father. So my dear father, what have you prepared for your son who is about to embark on an unknown journey? Li's father instantly wilted, and then he made fun of the two women by saying that they were married together, not just eating soft food, but at most eating half of it. He then put aside his frowning expression and said with a serious expression, "In the next half-month before the crossing, I will pass on the 3 taboos against standard humanoid creatures and 2 must-kill techniques against non-humanoid creatures that I learned from the Ministry of War." Li Hao looked at his father, who was becoming more rigorous, and still chose to act cautiously. He then asked, "Isn't it an extraordinary skill? Is it effective?" "It's just an ordinary martial arts skill, quite effective. I use it from practicing qi to heaven and man." Li Hao breathed a sigh of relief. His father was still a bit reliable when he was serious. "Then I'll learn." "Okay. So today I'll teach you the first way to deal with people. Stealing peaches." Li Hao stared at his father in shock, feeling like he had already said he was reliable. "Do we also need to learn this? What are you talking nonsense about? Do you know where humanoid creatures of different heights are located? Do you know how to hit the hardest? Do you know how to bypass different defense methods and directly attack Huanglong? You don't know." Li Hao's anger also dissipated in an instant. It seems that what he said is quite reasonable. "Dad. What are the other 4 forms?" Li Hao still had some unrealistic fantasies, but his father's next words plunged him into the abyss. "There are 2 more ways to deal with people. Digging and lifting, while for monsters, there are hyenas and jackals, both of which are very useful." "It's over." Li Hao looked down at his pure white hands with a look of helplessness. "You're not clean anymore." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Crossing. Li Hao ultimately began his practice of forbidden martial arts. Regardless of whether he was ugly or not, the hard truth was that he could kill enemies and save the dog's life. Time passed by as he carefully studied 88 different ways of pulling the crotch. On this day, June 27th, the weather is clear and suitable for burial. At 11:55, Li Hao was carrying a package, wearing soft armor that could prevent knives, swords, arrows, and crossbows, with a dagger pinned to his waist, and a dozen transparent polymer gloves given by his father to display forbidden martial arts. It can be said that it is armed to the extreme. Mr. and Mrs. Li nervously looked at themselves, reminding them over and over again whether they had brought this or that. If it weren't for strict regulations on the weight and volume of the items carried by Daobiao, they would have wished Li Hao could carry everything. At this time, the 2 are no longer high-level cultivators from Feitian Dundee, but just ordinary parents who are worried about their children who are about to travel far away. Li Hao took a deep breath as he watched his parents look worried, depressed, and hesitant to express themselves. Just as he was about to say some witty words to comfort them, his eyes suddenly darkened. Opening his eyes again, he saw a large and boundless sphere of light in front of him. Huan Xiling 4028.10086.9527, please note that you have entered the transit station of Tiandao Xingtu. You have passed the epidemic inspection, physical inspection, and road inspection. Welcome to your arrival. Please note that Li Hao, Kyushu realm, is the only highest authority holder corresponding to this number, and Li Hao, unknown realm. Previous life, does not have the highest authority for this number. You have activated the yellow level. Expandable Outlander .338793 related task. This task is your initial task, and all tasks except survival are optional. There is no penalty for task failure, and the task reward is doubled. The task-related information will be submitted to the Xianmeng University Daobiao Comprehensive Service Center version 3.32 for Daobiao exam scoring. Wishing you a pleasant journey. Li Hao just wanted to ask what the situation of past life was, and the broadcast of Lightball has been completed. Another familiar moment before my eyes darkened, but this time it seems a bit longer. In the dense forest, branches are intertwined, and speckled light spots scatter and sway with the swaying of leaves. Suddenly, a wild rabbit dragged its plump body past, causing a buzzing sound of insects. Li Hao's left eye angle film has an additional light spot on one side, which will scatter and become a subtitle after concentration. Main mission. Survive for 3 years. Reward 2 great achievements. Optional task. Currently unavailable, just a few words, it's concise enough. In the morning, it's around noon, 13 degrees Celsius. It should be early summer, with a large number of deciduous broad-leaved forests and non-toxic rabbit mammals. The oxygen content should be sufficient, and the climate should be warm-temperate. Li Hao took off the breathing and circulation mask on his face, took a breath, felt it was okay, and then took out the deodorant powder from the package. He carefully sprinkled it all over his body, trying to interfere with the possibility of the odor being tracked, and carefully chose a direction to move forward. He was lucky enough to find a dirt road on the edge of the forest after walking for less than half an hour. There are ruts, pulled by livestock, and the level of civilization is not high. Wearing shoes, standing at 1.6 meters tall and weighing 50 kilograms, it is a humanoid creature. I'm lucky, at least I can try to communicate. The world level rated as yellow is definitely not high, and the most influential factors for exploration and survival are natural conditions and the presence of intelligent organisms. It is obvious that Li Hao has drawn the upper ticket. Li Hao did not walk directly along the road to search for people, but instead rested in a shady corner of the forest, waiting to see if anyone passed by the dirt road, and collecting some language and other information. On a noisy afternoon, more than 10 people walked along the road, all of whom were standard humanoid creatures with yellow skin just like themselves. This world was probably in the period from the birth of gunpowder to before the Industrial Revolution, dressed similarly to ancient mortals in Xianmeng. The language they speak shares similarities with the Xianmeng common language, but is closer to the Chinese language of their past lives, with a hint of Qin accent. Collecting information was about the same. Li Hao changed his clothes and ate some wild fruits in the forest. Finally, when it was almost time, Li Hao found an old man holding a cart and deliberately walked around behind him, pretending to be panting and shouting. "My father. Law. My father. Law." The old man turned around and tightened his grip on the cow rope, carefully scrutinizing Li Hao. He looked at him with a jade-faced face, neatly dressed, and carrying a package on his back, unlike a strong man who robbed homes and houses. Only then did he speak. "What did the young master ask old me to do?" "Excuse me, where does this road lead to?" "Less than 20 miles ahead is Xi'an Prefecture, but the young master is going to the capital city." "It's extreme. It's extreme." Li Hao agreed while reaching into his arms to retrieve an ingot of silver. Silver, as a common precious metal, he brought a lot with him. Calm down and think for a moment. If he takes an ingot of silver, the old man will not dare to accept it. Even if he does, it may still be a disaster for him. Thinking of this, Li Hao reached into his arms and vigorously squeezed and rubbed, estimating that it weighed about 2 or 3 coins before finally taking it out. "I've been on the road for most of the day and I'm a bit tired. Can my father. Law give me a ride?" Li Hao handed out the silver and directly put it into the old man's sleeve, but the old man refused and repeatedly pushed it before accepting it. The old man wiped the edge of the car with his sleeves and felt it was clean before inviting Li Hao to sit down. There were several jars of alcohol and some hay piled up in the car, which should have been kept for feeding cows. He also spread them under Li Hao. So the two of them walked slowly along the road towards the city of Xi'an. On the way, Li Hao set up a conversation. "My father. Law is many years older than me, and his knowledge will surely surpass mine. I wonder if there is anything he can teach me. But just live for a few years. How can you have any insight?" The old man's face turned red when he saw that Li Hao was not ashamed to ask. Seeing that Li Hao really wanted to listen to him, he carefully considered the words. "If we talk about knowledge, what kind of knowledge can a farmer have?" However, looking at the young master's clothes and attire, he must be a family known for his wealth, and he has never seen anything before. Can I just tell you some interesting stories about the rivers and lakes that I have heard? Great. Li Hao was originally a fake nobleman, and if he really wanted to discuss some court articles, he would definitely miss the filling, so he was naturally willing. Then the old man talked about the Huashan sect on the nearby Huashan mountain, saying how this Huashan sect is doing well, and how its martial arts are like immortal techniques. Which group of villains in Guanzhong have their heads cut off by Huashan disciples, and which corrupt officials have been punished by Huashan disciples. The old man's story was indeed vivid and interesting, but Li Hao only believed 3 points in it. After all he heard was news from 180 hands. The disciples of Huashan inside were talking like immortals, but they could still get some information. The disciples of Mount Hua are indeed very skilled in fighting, and the surrounding prefectures that the old man has visited all respect and fear Mount Hua. As we talked about it, the sky was getting darker and the city was approaching. The city walls could be seen from afar. At this moment, about 10 strong horses drove past Li Hao and his companions, crossed the ox cart, and then another horse turned back. The other riders also stopped not far ahead, which frightened the old man. The rider who came over was a childish young man, about 15 or 16 years old, with a pretty face. "Sir, do you sell this wine?" The old man shrank his shoulder blades, trying to appear as hunched as possible, and replied. "It was originally meant to be sold. It's all fruit wine brewed from high-quality mountain spring water, not very intoxicating." The young man glanced at Li Hao and then asked. "How much is it?" "I'll take it all." The old man replied, "A jar of 3 caddies, 1 caddy is 15 won. There are a total of 15 jars, but one of them has already been taken care of and is not easy to sell. For 14 jars, they are priced at 500 won. The young man nodded and was about to pay the money, but then he rode over from a distance and got off his horse, saying, "How can this be done?" The old man arrived in the evening, and the journey must not be close. How could he have lost money? His voice was gentle, like a clear spring in a jade lute. Li Hao, who pretended to take a nap on the ox cart, couldn't fit in any more and looked up. I saw the person wearing a purple Taoist robe and carrying a sharp sword on his back. The woman looked almost 30 years old, and it was a ripe and unappealing time. Not only did she look beautiful, but she also tasted sweet. Upon closer inspection, her face was delicate and beautiful, her skin was as smooth as cream, and her eyes were like apricots. She has a plump figure and is dignified and beautiful. Her hair was stained with some dust from the road, but it looked even more heroic when paired with the sword and Taoist robe. What a stunning person! But Li Hao's vigilance was not due to his beauty, but rather because he could hear the voices of young men and old men from hundreds of meters apart, and his hearing must be far superior to that of ordinary people. The young woman gave enough silver money and saw Li Hao looking up at each other, so she nodded slightly. "When we meet, we have fate. The mountains of Huashan are not beautiful." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Jianghu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Jianghu. Li Hao is a bit confused. So what is this situation? That's not right. How did my big, humble, elegant, and dignified uncle version turn into a plump and graceful, ice-skinned and jade-skinned lady version? The goods are not the right board. Yu Buqiong's jade eyes still fell on Li Hao. Realizing that he had been absent-minded for a while, Li Hao quickly stood up and bowed before speaking. Li Hao, a scattered person, has met Senior Yu. His reputation has been passed down far and wide, and people from the countryside may feel impolite upon hearing of him. My name is Senior Yu. No matter what, I can't make a mistake, can I? Yu Buqiong returned a gift, turned around and looked at the disciple in the wine jar with a pitiful expression, not daring to speak much. He said angrily, "Put on the horse." Go ahead and present it to the senior uncles first, and then divide it with the senior brothers. Don't give those young ones to them. Okay. The young man suddenly became cheerful. Seeing the old man and Li Hao also looking at him, he immediately felt a little embarrassed and blushed as he went to fetch drinks. Yu Buqiong sighed and whispered softly. Xiao Tu Chong'er acted recklessly, both of you were shocked. It was said to be two people, but in fact it was said by looking at the old man selling alcohol. Where's it? The old man's voice grew louder as he realized it was the Huashan sect expert he had just talked about in his casual conversation. Huashan sect's heroes are heroes who uphold justice and protect the environment and the people. Upon hearing these words, Yu Buqiong also showed a hint of laughter, adding poetic beauty to the jasmine tree beside the road. It is highly likely that the young man next to him had finished moving the wine. Yu Buqiong flipped over and got on his horse, bowing to Li Hao and his disciples, and headed towards the large army sent by Huashan. Riding several tens of meters, Yu Buqiong finally couldn't contain her anger. I couldn't criticize you just now. Why did you come back to buy wine again? Let everyone wait for you. You want to get slapped again. De Chongzi had expected this question earlier, but this time he had a legitimate excuse. Not right. It is a reasonable reason. I see that young master's clothes are not cheap. How could he ride a cart? I'm afraid he might be deceived and harmed by that old man. Buying alcohol in the past was just a pretext, thinking that if I was really deceived I would have to save him. Yu Buqiong breathed a sigh of relief, but still didn't have a good expression. You are quick-witted and chivalrous, but your Li and Qing martial uncles can't see it. If you are truly intelligent, when riding a horse past an ox cart, you should see that young man with a top-notch short sword around his waist. This young man has strong qi and blood, and a long pulse. I'm afraid he has already reached the level of condensing true qi. Isn't it? He looks like he's only 3 or 2 years older than me. How could he be so fast? Has he already practiced magic? No. He has stubble and a masculine face. Chong'er can't believe it. I am already the most outstanding disciple of the Huashan sect in recent years. He has laid a solid foundation since childhood, and has been taught by famous teachers to eat various nourishing herbs freely. He may be almost 20 years old when he thinks of condensing true qi. Surprisingly, this person is even faster than himself. Yu Buqiong felt that the heat was approaching, and now was a good time to educate his disciples. There are so many strange people and things in the world. What is there to be surprised about? How can you achieve success in the path of martial arts if you are complacent even if you surpass a few disciples of your age? This world is big. He is not good at refuting his own master, and if he really does as his master said, then he is indeed one step behind that young master. He felt a sense of distress in his heart and took a big sip of wine before feeling better. He then saw his master Xingmu glaring angrily and quickly put down his wine bag, saying in a muffled voice. This time back to the mountain, practice diligently and don't play with the 6 monkeys. Practice swordsmanship more every day and move more qi and blood. Increase your martial arts skills daily. Yes. He felt even more pain, wanting to take a few sips but afraid of being scolded by his master again, so he had to ride towards his fellow disciples with a bitter face. Senior brother Gao, do you know? Just now, that young master was about to condense his true qi before he was 20. What my master said must be true. Junior brother Li, listen to me. If you ask me, I will practice every day and strive to return to the mountains after waiting for all the senior brothers to know. Even a few senior uncles must have heard him. He took a strong sip of wine and felt much more comfortable. If everyone practices more, it's like I haven't practiced more. If everyone is unlucky, then I'm not unlucky. Besides, I did it to give my senior brothers a sense of crisis and to establish a martial arts training atmosphere where the disciples of the Huashan sect strive for excellence and think in unison with the wise. I am truly great. Senior brother Gao, why don't they understand me? Do you dare to stare at me? I'll go around from my senior uncle's side later. I must ask my senior uncle to add more burden to him. Thinking of this, he took another sip of the wine happily, not feeling that it was too difficult to go back to the mountain for further training. As the Huashan sect retreated, the old man's hunched back finally straightened out and he relaxed. The disciples of the Huashan sect make sense. Li Hao teased the old man. Didn't my father-in-law say that the Huashan sect is all great heroes and good people? Why are you still afraid? The old man was not angry either and smiled, saying, the heroes of the Huashan sect are naturally good people based on reason, so there is no need to be afraid, sir. People like me from the countryside are not unaware that it's really hard to make a living, so be more careful, okay? Li Hao picked up the package placed on the cart and asked, the sky is getting late, and my father-in-law's drinks have already been sold. Do we still need to enter the city? Who should I give the remaining jar of wine to? I can run for my father-in-law to avoid some fatigue. I was supposed to stay in the city all night selling alcohol, but since the alcohol has been sold, I naturally have to go back and save on accommodation money. The old man picked up the last jar of wine from the car, shook it twice, and suddenly a hint of expression appeared in his cloudy eyes. As for this jar of wine, it is indeed meant to be given as a gift. It is meant to be given to you, young master. The old man handed the wine jar to Li Hao. I should have invited the young master to taste the local wine on the way, but on the way, it is not advisable to drink it as a gift from others, and I am also afraid that in case the young master is not strong enough to drink, he may miss your business. Now that I have arrived in the capital, it's okay to try it after staying overnight. It's also a gesture of goodwill from the old man. Just now, the great hero of the Huashan sect said, meeting is fate. The young master gifted me silver coins, and I am ashamed to receive them. I have had the privilege of getting to know you, young master, along this journey. As a gift of local wine, I have fulfilled this fate after feeding the diligent and honest ox a few bundles of grass. The old man walked slowly towards the sunset. Li Hao held the wine jar and watched as the old man and ox cart disappeared at the end of the road. He then withdrew his gaze, opened the jar, took a sip of this refreshing wine, and said, good wine. Subsequently, he carried the glow on his back and headed towards the capital city along the road. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Practice Qi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Practice Qi. Li Hao entered the city, squeezed through the streets, crossed the meat shops of the vegetable workshops, passed through small alleys and markets, and finally saw Fulin Tea House, next to the street, with 3 words hanging on the pillar at the entrance that read, you can stay overnight. Walking sideways from the stall, Li Hao walked into the inn amidst the weak shouts of the vendors. Upon entering the door, there was the lobby, with about 10 tables arranged haphazardly, surrounded by a small table that was only enough for one person to sit upright. At this moment, the sky was already dark, and there was only one table in the store where a customer placed 2 small dishes to drink alone. The waiter in the shop was wiping the table when he heard the sound of Li Hao entering the door. He quickly wiped it a few times before running to him. Does the guest want to stay in the hotel? Yes. Do you want some food to eat? Okay. The waiter led Li Hao a few steps inside and arrived at a table. He even wiped the stool and tabletop with his sleeve a few times, and then proudly extended it to show Li Hao that the tabletop was clean. How long do guests want to stay? What kind of room do they want? What kind of houses are there? What is the price? Li Hao asked with great interest. After all, as a person of 2 generations, it was his first time living in such an antique shop. Our store has 4 types. Small courtyard, upper room, common room, and general store. The general store has 4 people per room, 10 yuan per day, 30 yuan per day for common room, and 100 yuan per day for upper room. The most expensive small courtyard costs 250 yuan per day, but it is very clean. There are also some flowers and plants in the courtyard, and there is a small house in addition to the main house, Xiao Yuan. First, bring me some hot dishes, and then boil me a pot of hot water. The waiter showed a look as expected. After all, the face and clothes of this master could not have been raised by ordinary people at first glance. After making a promise, he ran towards the backyard. Li Hao didn't care about the waiter's carelessness either. He took a small bowl from the table, looked clean, and didn't pay much attention to it. He poured the wine given by the old man into the bowl. This wine is not considered top quality, but as the old man said, it has a fruity aroma and an estimated alcohol content of only 4 or 5 degrees. Li Hao drank it directly as water. After drinking 2 bowls and relieving my thirst, the waiter ran back with a pot in hand. Guest. There's also a small half chicken and 2 pounds of lamb in the kitchen, which is considered meat. I'll stir-fry some bangzi dishes for you, and serve vinegar-soaked peanuts with wine. Okay. You watch and do it. Damn it. The waiter put down the hot water and prepared to run towards the backyard, but was stopped by Li Hao. Is the small table in the middle of your tea house for storytellers? Yes. Not to mention anything else, Mr. Chen, the storyteller at Fulin Tea House, is the best in the entire city. If you want to listen, I'll leave you a private seat on the 2nd floor tomorrow. Oh. What kind of books are they all about? That's quite complicated. There are many works such as Shuo Yu and Young Family Generals. Mr. Chen used to hang out in the martial arts world when he was young, and he was also very good at telling anecdotes about the martial arts world. That's worth listening to. Sending away the waiter, Li Hao felt that this tea house was a good way to gather information and understand the world with a gathering of people from all walks of life. He could stay for a few more days. After eating, drink up the wine gifted by the old man. Li Hao, who was full of wine and food, followed the waiter through the backyard, went out through the back door, walked a few steps along the alley, and arrived at a small courtyard. Young master, that's it. If you have something to do, just ring the copper bell in the courtyard and the little one will come over when they hear it. Li Hao nodded and entered the main room, throwing the package on the bed. I have nothing to do today. Tomorrow morning, you can bring some pancakes and a pot of hot water. Also, if the storyteller comes, please call me. Remember, little one. Seeing the waiter leave, Li Hao tied the door bolt and began to tidy up the house. However, his cleaning is very different from that of ordinary people. Wrap the main house window with 2 layers of polymer plastic film that you carry with you, take out the itch powder, refined by your mother from the package, apply it to the door latch and window, and then casually make several simple traps with the decorations inside the house before stopping. I have found healing ointment, exorcism oil, and ichi powder. Pour several different small packets into 200 grams of clean water according to the instructions, stir with your little finger to fully dissolve the reaction, and finally let a stick of incense stand for a while. The solution turns emerald green. Seeing that the instructions for Ichi-san were consistent with those written by his mother, Li Hao lay down on the bed, hiccuped and drank Ichi-san in one gulp. Should one practice sitting in a sitting position? Please. Sitting cross-legged feels so sore, it's still comfortable to lie down. It's been 4,028 years now, and humans have 8,848 different genders. Who still practices traditional practices? The medicinal effect lasted for about a quarter of an hour, and Li Hao felt a warm current rising from the Dantian area. He then swam through various meridians throughout his body, feeling even more comfortable than after completing the 1999 massage. Jia. 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 Break the barrier and return to the Yao realm. Starting from today, Li Hao is also capable of practicing Qi realm. No, the art style is wrong. Breaking through the Qi cultivation realm is indeed a joyful event, but unfortunately it came 10 years later. God knows that when he was in first grade of elementary school, He couldn't practice ahead of schedule because he was a Taoist priest. Look at how envious his other buddies are when they start practicing qi. Now, practicing qi 10 years later is like reuniting a wrinkled first love after years of breakup. I still have some thoughts before seeing you, but when I say goodbye, I actually feel, is that all? Li, a great energy practitioner, began to use his own energy inside the room. Although there are no extraordinary methods, even ordinary elementary school students in the Immortal Alliance broadcast 7 sets have greatly increased their power with the blessing of qi. He showcases various martial arts skills, seemingly ordinary punches and kicks with an unparalleled charm. Even the Great Way has been erased. Okay, it's just a broken corner of the table. Satisfied with his childlike curiosity of being 10 years late, Li Hao finally remembered to do the right thing. He tested his physical fitness, strength, resilience, and other changes after breaking through with radio gymnastics, and the overall increase was very significant. Prior to this, he was just a healthy, 9.9 300 kg clean and jerk ordinary Taoist youth in the Xianmeng. On the road, even ordinary elementary school students dare not speak loudly, fearing that it might be a bare child who spoils themselves. He tried to use his spiritual sense to perceive and move the small bowl on the table, playing happily. Moving. Moving. The small bowl rubbed forward and forth, moving forward 1 centimeter through countless hardships. Why didn't you move? Oh. I have run out of energy. Don't panic, hold your hand steady, sit for a while, and return to breathing. Why didn't you feel it? Can't return to qi. Li Hao carefully sensed for half a day before waking up as if from a dream. Of course, this world has spiritual energy, but it is too thin. I need to meditate for at least 2 to 3 months to fully recover my energy. Hush. It's too early to be proud. There is a broad sense of spiritual energy in any world. Solar energy, bioenergy, ether, dark matter, and even ordinary soil are all considered spiritual energy, in a broad sense, and cultivators can extract magic from them. But this is a skill that only high-level cultivators possess, while the spiritual energy, used by low-level cultivators in their practice is a narrow and general term, referring to the energy of heaven and earth that can be perceived by ordinary people through exercise. This is the narrow and broad theory of spiritual energy. Obviously, it is impossible to rely on practicing all the way and then play and crush in this martial arts world. Even if my mom brought me 20 sets of Ichi powder, 20 sets of Huichi powder, and 10 sets of Naki pills, it seems that it's not impossible either. Li Hao was extremely shocked. Is the soft rice man actually me? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Age of the Great Conquest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Age of the Great Conquest. On April 21st, enjoy tea and listen to books. On April 22nd, enjoy tea and listen to books. April 23rd, should we do something else? Forget it, listen to the book and enjoy the tea. April 24th, the storyteller at this Fulin tea house is indeed good, with clear speech and exciting stories to tell. In the afternoon, all kinds of people in the tea house always filled the 2 floors. Mr. Chen, can we talk about the story of the Golden Swordsman 100 years ago? Li Hao has gained some face by spending a few days in the tea house, but the key to face is that he can afford to spend 10 more on his own than others. Old Chen took his reward for 3 or 4 days in a row, and he couldn't help but. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know why this golden swordsman is called the Golden Swordsman? That's because he really has a 3-foot golden sword. However, although this person is known as a swordsman, in fact, his most powerful skill is not swordsmanship, but a shocking and ghostly marksmanship. And it's an invisible marksmanship. It is said that no one who opposes him can survive from his ultimate skill of holding a gun in his arms. This shot was shot like a dragon, causing thunderous explosions. Without seeing the gun, people had already lost their lives. The storyteller on stage was still working hard, occasionally making some movements, which attracted constant cheers from the tea guests. Li Hao's thoughts have drifted far away. This storyteller has just finished telling the story of Guodashia, who guarded Xianyang Pass for 30 years during the Song dynasty, and finally died with his whole family. One-armed Daxia also made several guest appearances in it. This story has been widely circulated, second only to Shuoyu, the Three Kingdoms, and the Yang family generals. It is similar to the Xingtang and Di Gong cases and is a daily must-tell story. But everything in this world was 100 years ago, around the time of the Jingnan incident, earth-shattering. The protagonist of the story is the Golden Swordsman among the storytellers, or rather Li Hao's Dao Biao Sr. This person has an unknown background. In just 1 year, he defeated dozens of experts from both the righteous and evil sects consecutively, and his ruthless actions have caused a lot of resentment in the martial arts world. If that's all, it's nothing more than giving up and losing face, or dying more forcefully at his hands. The martial arts world is all about fighting and killing. How many people can he kill as a lone ranger? But this person also has a great hobby. He competes with others to win, and when he sees superior martial arts, he will definitely demand them. Otherwise, he will kill the opponent and compare with his school friends. He will never give up until he obtains the martial arts secret script. This has provoked anger and resentment from both the righteous and evil realms. So, led by Zen Master Hongye of Southern Shaolin, four top experts from both good and evil sects gathered together and asked him to compete in Mount Wui. On the day of martial arts, the four masters fought against him one after another, and the most powerful Red Leaf Zen Master only managed to hold on to more than 60 moves before being defeated. So the four of them admonished the Golden Swordsman for a while, and then talked to this demon about the morality of the martial arts world, shoulder to shoulder. It is expected that the four masters of good and evil will work together to eradicate this evil and bring peace to the world. A swordsman is difficult to defeat with one sword, and he is about to die here. The onlookers in the martial arts world, whether good or evil, shout loudly. Suddenly, there were 6 loud noises in the flat ground. Except for Zen Master Hongye, all 3 of them fell in response, and Zen Master's lower abdomen also started to bleed. The other 3 had holes as big as bowls on their bodies, and in an instant, they were out of breath. Fortunately, although Master Hongye had never practiced the Vajra immortal skill, his external skills were indeed top-notch, which barely saved his life. After this battle, the Golden Swordsman's demonic power is towering. No, he is the great hero of Jin with great prestige. Wherever they go, various sects and sects greet each other, presenting various secret scripts with both hands. But there's a reversal. After barely surviving his surname, Zen Master Hongye returned to the temple for recuperation. Surprisingly, in less than a year, he recovered from his injuries and made great progress in his martial arts skills. With his great enlightenment, he entered an innate state that had not been achieved by anyone for decades. Master Hongye has made great progress in martial arts, and the first thing he does when he leaves the level is naturally to pursue the Golden Swordsman who injured him in the first place. After all, there are some things that I don't need as a monk, but I can't do without them. The Golden Swordsman then transformed from a hero to a thief. He was chased for several months in a row. Just as he had nowhere to go from heaven to earth and was about to die under the command of Master Hongye, the reversal came again. He somehow conspired against Du Yuan, a disciple of Zen Master Hongye, and took advantage of Du Yuan's deception to go to Luoyang. He went to Fujian to collect Hongye's lair and obtained the secret of his great improvement in Hongye's martial arts, the Sunflower Encyclopedia. Master Hongye was furious and vowed to kill the Golden Swordsman to pay homage to his lost second brother and fellow disciples. At the same time, large bookstores in Luoyang, Xi'an, Beijing, and around the world have received a large number of mysterious orders. In less than a month, from the northern desert to Cheongzhou, from the western regions to the East China Sea, no one knows the Sunflower Classic and the Red Leaf Zen Master. There are over 1 million copies of the Genuine Divine Arts Sunflower Encyclopedia, Sunflower Encyclopedia Golden Sword Guest Sharp Review Edition, Red Leaf Zen Master Innocent First Year Commemorative Limited Edition, and other 7 or 8 different versions of the Sunflower Encyclopedia appearing in the world. Each version of the mind technique and supporting martial arts have their own differences, but they are inherited in terms of martial arts theory. More importantly, the title page of all printed books is the same. To practice divine skills, one must first go to the palace. Thank you to Zen Master Hongye for his tremendous sacrifice in advancing martial arts. The story of cutting red leaves has since been successfully selected as one of the top 10 important events of the 100 years since the founding of the Ming Dynasty, alongside major events such as the Hongwu Dynasty, the Jingnan Incident, and the Tumu Fort Incident. Red Leaf Zen Master's popularity has surpassed that of ancient sages such as Confucius and Mencius, and he, along with the Golden Swordsman, is revered by future martial artists as the two saints of the Fudao. But all of this is just the beginning. Just like the leaders Yu, Zhua, and Lin Pingji on a normal timeline, there are always responsibilities, ambitions, and hatred in this world that are more painful and agonizing than losing a couple of flesh and dignity. There are countless unknown people at the bottom of the martial arts world, and to obtain an ordinary martial arts skill, one needs to shed their head in blood. The Divine Arts Manual consists of 20 texts per book. Whether you practice it or not, buying and reading one book will not be a loss. How many oppressed civilians were there under the backward and rigid system of feudal dynasties? What cannot be lost when the countless people who have become a historical saying every few years, such as Great Famine, people eat each other, and Great Drought, people are sparse, are all just dying. Ambitious individuals, martial artists, and ordinary people with nowhere to go, one or two of them are inconspicuous, and when they come together, they become countless people. Before this, there was no equality in this world except for death. There is inequality between officials, wealthy individuals, and rural families, as well as between famous disciples and lower-class members of the martial arts world. Even the top and bottom beggars in the beggars are unequal. But now, they have another equal right, another right, to choose when their previously insurmountable fate approaches. At first, no one cared. It's just that the Avenger who was exterminated suddenly completed his revenge, and it's just that the people who were oppressed to the point of their families being destroyed risked killing officials. It's just something that happened before, now, and will happen in the future. But everything is different again. The frenzy of the times was nurtured when most people were still laughing at the red leaves, lurking in gentle winds and drizzle, ignored in slight waves, and then when it swept over, no one could stop this shocking torrent. The era of the great harvest has arrived. End of this chapter. How about practicing chapter 8? You are listening at novelfull.audio. How about practicing chapter 8? The widespread dissemination of the Sunflower Encyclopedia injected unique vitality into this boring feudal dynasty. After the lower-level martial arts practitioners have made great progress in their divine arts and martial arts, will they continue to flatter the famous disciples like before? Will you obediently endure a life of poverty? Will you be willing to live forever at the bottom? Jokes. He has already abandoned his sword, can he still suffer this injustice? In just a few years, a large number of disorderly new heroes and demons completely destroyed the original martial arts system. I don't know how many famous sects have gone through a long process of being wiped out, buried, and erected monuments before they even realize it. Kunlun, Ame, and Kong Tong. When cutting becomes an internal competition in the martial arts world, not cutting becomes a sin. Because being weak is already the greatest sin. You should know that even for super sects like Shaolin and Wudang, disciples with high qualifications often need to be in their 30s or 40s to condense true qi. Only in middle age can one be called a hero in the world of martial arts, which is already fast. What about now? Those with average qualifications only need one cut, 1 year to condense true qi, and 3 years to connect the 6 meridians of the extraordinary scriptures. After 2 more years of training, one can still penetrate the Rendu meridian and become a top-notch expert in the entire martial arts world. Even Shaolin, with imperial titles at the top, support from wealthy individuals at the middle, and 100,000 fertile fields at the bottom, cannot satisfy all disciples' thirst for resources in martial arts. Not valued. Practice. Poor qualifications. Practice. That senior brother glanced at me askance. Practice. My disciple has surpassed me in martial arts. What should I do? Practice. Younger martial brother, are you afraid he will steal my position as the leader after practicing? Practice. Am I the only one who hasn't practiced the entire sect? Practice. So the major sects of good and evil, who were originally stable on the Daiyutai, also invested in the fast-acting and powerful martial arts of the Wu sect. The evaluation of Red Leaf and Golden Swordsman in the entire martial arts world would be completely different. In the past, the Golden Swordsman was a demon, and the Red Leaf was a joke about the reason for cutting. But now you too have the grace of preaching to everyone. No matter how much hatred you have in your heart, the title of the pioneer of martial arts and the 2 saints of the world must be given to you both. The great turmoil and reshuffle caused by this sunflower encyclopedia lasted for more than 20 years before it finally subsided on the surface under a stable new system in the martial arts world and society. Although this farce may seem funny, the overall level of martial arts in the martial arts world has experienced a surge. In the past, even if one was a top-notch master in refining true chi, they could still become elders in various sections. The pinnacle of the world after birth is the pinnacle of the martial arts world, and the innate realm is almost legendary. If you throw a stone into the sunflower world and there are 3 or 4 peaks after tomorrow, then the peaks after tomorrow are not worth any money. Similarly, with a large base of tens of thousands, there is always someone who can take one step closer and break through innate limitations. To this day, the leaders of various sects in the martial arts world must start from the innate realm in order to establish a stable position as the leader. It can be said that the Golden Swordsman and Red Leaf used their combined strength to upgrade the entire world from low martial arts to medium martial arts, which can be called immeasurable merit. In this upheaval, there were those like Kunlun Kongtong who destroyed their gates and died, as well as those who received dividends, such as the Huashan sect. The Sunflower Encyclopedia spreads in the martial arts world, with 20 texts per book. Therefore, Yu Su and Kai Zifeng from Huashan would not go to the southern Shaolin to steal secret scriptures for the sake of the scripture, and the root of the sword energy dispute would naturally disappear. On the contrary, while other sects were still watching, Huashan took great strides towards the cutting era under the leadership of these two. They took a step forward and used the rich heritage of the sect itself to supplement and adjust the Sunflower Classic, proposing many new martial arts theories based on the Sunflower Classic. For example, the Yu Su theory. Cutting is to promote cultivation through the use of heart fire, blood fire, desire fire, so the earlier the better. It should be done at least until the age of 16-17 when the body is healthy and at its peak, but it should not be done later than the age of 30, otherwise the borrowed firepower will decline. There is also the Kai-style conjecture. Before cutting, condense your own true chi, which can effectively increase the probability of breaking through the innate peak. According to statistical data, the probability of breaking through the peak in the day after tomorrow is only 0.6%, but the success rate of breaking through is as high as 15% after accumulating true chi. However, due to the inability to rule out the significant interference that the qualification to condense true chi before the age of 30 is better, Kai's conjecture, although widely accepted, is not a theorem. If a temple is to be erected for the eternal cause avenue in the future, then the golden and red saints will definitely be placed in the center of the temple for worship. Yu and Kai, who cannot reach the Asian sage, at least mix up with the 10 sages. The version of Yu Buqiong that I saw before thinking of this, Li Hao picked up the tea on the table and drank it all in one gulp, then took a long sigh of relief and settled his mind. What about being charming, mature and intellectual, and my taste? No, it still doesn't work. Not necessarily. The original Sunflower Encyclopedia may not be able to achieve anode and shade, but our senior Daobiao must have already entered university and seen many extraordinary methods. There are also many methods for practicing the state of qi, such as limb amputation and rebirth, as well as changes in yin and yang. Is it possible that the sunflower he has modified can really look like it, but use it more like it? Li Hao was taken aback for a moment, and then he felt a chill all over his body. In this world, no matter how beautiful or natural the beauty is, it is absolutely impossible to rely on it. At this moment, the storyteller finished a long section and was drinking tea to beg for money. The tea guests who came should also go to the restroom and chat. At this moment, the shop assistant stood tightly holding a small package at the entrance of the backyard and waved to Li Hao, anxiously looking around. As soon as someone saw him, he immediately lowered his head and trembled. Li Hao threw a dime of silver to the storyteller and received a few good words before walking towards the waiter. The two of them returned to the small courtyard where Li Hao lived, and the waiter looked at the courtyard left, right, and right over and over again until Li Hao was a bit annoyed. It was then that he opened the package with a cover. "Young master, it's all here. I heard that there are a total of 8 different types. I have gone to several stores and bought 6 different versions, but I haven't bought either the commemorative or limited edition versions. These few books, although dilapidated, are from the Yongle era and are still intact and authentic. I spent a total of 6 silver coins on buying the book, mainly because ancient books are relatively expensive. There is still money left from the money you gave me, the rest is the running fee for you. It's hard work." Li Hao took the book and waved his hand. Upon hearing the phrase, hard work, the waiter was somewhat surprised. A guy like him, who has been looked down upon by others, let alone a big shot like Li Hao, can't care about anything else now and says, "Young master, this thing is really harmful. Being infected with opium and wuxia powder is even more harmful than that. Young master, don't go practice that thing." "I know. Go ahead." Seeing that Li Hao didn't take it seriously, the waiter wanted to persuade him again, but speaking up earlier was already a taboo, breaking the rules of the tea house. After hesitating for a moment, the waiter left with a bitter expression on his face. Li Hao returned to the room, lit the lights, and carefully read these sunflower scriptures under the lamp, which were from the same source but each had its own unique charm. When he read the exquisite parts, he couldn't help but applaud. The protection of the preparatory road markers that have not undergone the first crossing in the Kyushu border has been strict to the point of strictness. The preparatory road sign allows you to ride a dragon and fly away, but you cannot obtain the most basic extraordinary methods. Only after completing the first crossing and being marked by the heavenly way can you have no further restrictions. So even if Li Hao had 2 parents from the 4th realm, with extensive knowledge, it was the first time he had seen a truly extraordinary method, which made him somewhat excited. After flipping through it hastily, I increasingly feel that this treasure trove has great subtleties. Although Li Hao struggled to enter the qi cultivation realm through herbs before, he had no methods and his spiritual energy was thin. Relying on the pills he brought to improve his cultivation was just a drop in the bucket. At present, although this sunflower encyclopedia only follows the path of combining essence and qi, breaking through to the innate level is only equivalent to practicing the 4 layers of qi. Even after completing this journey and returning, there are countless methods for Li Hao to choose from, each surpassing this sunflower encyclopedia 100 times and 1,000 times. But that's all about the future, and there's something real in front of him. The method that can be directly used now, Li Hao couldn't help but feel a bit tempted. How about practicing and watching? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Zhongnan Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Zhongnan Mountain. Of course, cutting is not allowed, but it's not impossible to practice. What if Li is an unparalleled martial arts genius? With the idea of throwing a stick without any fish, Li Hao operated his own qi according to the method of condensing true qi in the treasure book. Within 2 Sundays, he was forced to stop and awkwardly looked at his already raised robe. Okay. It seems that I am not really a martial arts genius in this field. The core martial arts principle of the Baodian is to stimulate a person's yang fire to promote cultivation, but excessive yang fire naturally disrupts the movement of true qi. Li Hao was clear about this, but the treasure book did indeed arouse his great interest in the martial arts and internal skills of this world. Zhongnan Mountain is located near Xi'an Prefecture, and there is probably not much left of the Chuanjian sect site, but the ancient tomb can still be explored. There are still young descendants of the ancient tomb sect at the end of the Yuan dynasty, so the ancient tomb sect should have existed at least until the early Ming dynasty. If you can find such martial arts as the 9 Yin Manual and the 18 Dragons Subduing Palms, you can earn a lot of money naturally. It's not bad to have Chuanjian and Yun mental skills to keep the bottom. Do whatever you say. That night Li Hao packed his luggage and dismantled all the carefully arranged traps in the small courtyard. These traps are not really good. It's a pity that Li Hao's special itching powder can't be collected after being sprinkled, which is a bit wasteful. The next morning, with a slight dawn, he carried his package and headed towards Zhongnan Mountain, just like when he arrived. Xi'an Prefecture is not far from Zhongnan Mountain, but after walking for a while, Li Hao even stepped into the Zhongnan Mountain range. I bought a simple map from the village at the foot of the mountain for 41. Following the map, Li Hao found a Taoist temple at the foot of the mountain to stay overnight. It is said to be a Taoist temple, but in fact, it is larger than the small courtyard where Li Hao lived in the city before. In the center of the Taoist temple, there is a statue of Master Sanqing and an incense burner hanging in the room. On one side, there is a Taoist and his disciple, while on the other side, it is reserved for people like Li Hao who enter the mountain to borrow. In the evening, the Taoist master and disciple drank the vegetable soup cooked by the Taoist together with Li Hao. Li Hao asked curiously, "Are there many people entering the mountain? Why do we have to leave a room specifically for people to stay in?" The Taoist blew the steaming hot vegetable soup and took a sip. "It's a bit salty, disciple. Go get a cake for the guest." Then he added, "Hunters from several villages at the foot of the mountain occasionally come back late to me for hunting, and there are also some hermits on the mountain who stop here every month or 2 when they go down to buy groceries, grain, and oil. Another thing is that there were some Huashan disciples on the mountain of Chuanjian sect before, but they had another way out of the mountain and only occasionally walked towards me. As the old saying goes, there are many hermits in Zhongnan. But how could the disciples of Huashan be in Zhongnan mountain?" Li Hao was somewhat surprised and wondered if it would affect his search for the ancient tomb. "According to your accent, you are not a local of Xi'an Prefecture, are you?" "Indeed not. Li Hao's accent has been carefully adjusted, but there is still a difference from Qin's accent, and there is nothing to hide about it." The Taoist continued. "No wonder. Do you know that the Huashan sect is one of the top sects in the martial arts world? Although I am not a martial artist, I have heard of the name of the Huashan sect." The Taoist once again said, "This Huashan sect is so prosperous that it naturally needs some revenue to support its disciples. Those disciples grow and collect herbs on the mountain, and also take in tenants from nearby Lantian and Zhouji counties." Li Hao is a bit confused again. Planting medicine is common, but collecting rent. What rent is collected? He. The Taoist just smiled for a while before saying, "Nearly half of the fields in Lantian and Zhouji counties belong to Huashan, and the other fields in these 2 counties that are not owned by Huashan are also rushing to pay 10% of the rent to Huashan. How many domestic helpers in the 37 counties of the 6 prefectures in Xi'an Prefecture want to pay back but cannot?" Looking at Li Hao with some doubts, the Taoist said, "Young master, do you know how much money an ordinary county tycoon would have to draw to rent a piece of land outside? If you draw 50%, it's a living bodhisattva. A lot of them are 60% or even 70%. I also have to pay various miscellaneous taxes and corvée on my own. In normal years, it's not bad. In a dry or flood year, I have to sell children, sell women, and eat tree bark. The Huashan sect only accepts 30% of the rent. If a child is selected to join the entry-level school, they will immediately be exempt from 5 years of rent. In the event of natural or man-made disasters, it is also advisable to pay less rent at your discretion, and there is no need to make up for it later. If there are big insects, jackals, and wolves, the disciples of the Huashan sect will naturally remove them. In the face of corrupt officials and wrongful cases, Huashan disciples will act chivalrous and uphold justice. Who else is there in the entire Shaanxi Gansu Ningxia region with such a landlord? The court. What is the use of the court besides coming up with various reasons to increase taxes? The first thing the magistrate of Xi'an did when he was appointed was to go to Huayin to pay respects at Mount Hua. If Mount Hua didn't speak, he wouldn't even be able to pay taxes. Li Hao understood. This is a world that is worse than others. Compared to others, the exploitation of ordinary people by the Huashan party is not so strict, allowing them to at least barely make a living and receiving praise from the people. It's a damn world. The Taoist's knowledge was not poor and he had a lot of knowledge. Li Hao and he chatted until the end of the hour. Lying in the narrow cabin, Li Hao stared at the leaking hole on the roof without any drowsiness. Everything the Taoist talked about today greatly diminished his excitement and fondness for the martial arts world when he first arrived in another world. Now it is the 28th year of the judging reign. The feudal dynasty, which had already passed half of its lifespan, is also drifting through storms, but at least it still maintains its surface radiance and has a lifespan of nearly 100 years. But in this timeline, where there are martial arts and the Dao Biao was changed by demons 100 years ago, this feudal dynasty is even more seriously ill. The reason for this is due to the increase in personal strength value. In an era that was originally extinct from birth, it was difficult to influence the situation with personal force at the peak of the future. 60 or 70 armored soldiers with bows and crossbows were enough to encircle and kill. Even if it's like the martial arts giant Shaolin, with numerous experts and over 1,000 disciples, 3,000 elite are enough to destroy the temple. After all, martial artists excel in personal combat and are not proficient in military formations. The more people there are, the more chaotic they become, and the less space they have to play. Therefore, the influence of the martial arts on the entire dynasty is very limited, and it is also difficult to determine the direction of history. But the huge changes brought by the Sunflower Encyclopedia have led to the emergence of a large number of innate experts, which is completely bad. Innate experts are already able to make initial use of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and there is a qualitative gap between them and the peak of the acquired world in various aspects. The specific manifestation is that the innate realm is no longer afraid of the siege of ordinary people. As long as there are no experts at the same level to restrain them, and they are not trapped in narrow terrain, it is difficult for the army to save their lives. Moreover, the warriors in the Sunflower system have a significant characteristic of being fast, which further increases the innate difficulty of encirclement and killing. Holding a sharp blade, the killing intent arises from within. There is a saying that goes, truth is only within the scope of the caliber. It is obvious that many innate beings have lost their body's caliber, but have gained a huge threat of force. I can kill your prefect, county magistrate, and even imperial relatives. You can't do anything about me. So I'm still afraid of your power. I have more fists than you, fists are power. How could powerful imperial relatives and landlord officials be willing to be cut off? They won't even allow people around them to cut them, because once they have the power to crush them at any time, how can they ensure their loyalty? The human heart is always unpredictable. Therefore, from the late Yongle period to the present day, the deterrent power of the court has been gradually eroded by the martial arts sects represented by Shaolin, Wudong, Huashan, Sun and Moon. The interests and rights that originally belonged to the officials and landlords were constantly seized by various factions, and the national strength of the Ming dynasty naturally declined even more. The major factions have become essentially feudal lords of the land. Li Hao rolled over and slowly fell asleep. Before losing consciousness, his last thought was, "I think this Ming dynasty is coming to an end. It's pitiful for the old man who sells alcohol, the shop assistant, the Taoist, and countless ordinary people." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Encountering Wolves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Encountering Wolves. I searched another pool, but still found nothing. I can't say for sure, the water pool has long disappeared after these 100 years of changes. Forget it, it's always a bit unwillingness to give it a try. This southern mountain is also too big. After entering the mountain, Li Hao has been staying in the mountain for 5 or 6 consecutive days, searching for more than 10 water pools, but still hasn't found the secret passage of the ancient tomb sect. Seeing it was nightfall again, he was now in a deep mountain, a bit far from the Taoist temple at the foot of the mountain. Li Hao found some firewood and lit a fire, preparing to deal with it for another night. Woo-woo. Zhi. The roar of wolves came from far to near, gathering and wandering in places beyond the reach of the flames. A pair of green wolf eyes exuded a captivating aura in the darkness, staring intently at their prey. Sigh. Li Hao felt a bit uncomfortable. He thought the first battle of his career as a Taoist was a thrilling battle, with comparable enemies, but to his surprise, it was just a group of beasts. The wolf pack is still observing Li Hao. He has become a bit impatient. Kill these wolves earlier and rest earlier. Li Hao drew a relatively straight wooden stick from the firewood, splashing sparks at one end, and walked towards the dark forest. A wolf sensed the movement, with its waist arched high and its fangs leaking out. The drooling wolf's mouth emitted low growls, and the surrounding wolf pack immediately responded, rushing towards Li Hao in 2s and 3s. The 7th set of elementary school students radio gymnastics, hoping to exercise. Li Hao used this gymnastics, which is said to have been modified from swordsmanship, in a methodical manner. With his strong physique and quick reflexes, he killed a pack of wolves and turned them upside down. A few unlucky eggs were even burned by sparks and turned into bald wolves. The head wolf saw Li Hao enter and exit from the wolf pack 7 times, with the courage to defeat 10,000 wolves. Knowing that he had encountered a tough opponent, he let out a few loud roars, and the wolf pack immediately dispersed and fled. Li Hao is making peerless swordsmanship popular. How could he just let go of such a good companion for training? He looked for the right-headed wolf and followed along, thinking of taking the wolf pack's lair. But the road was slippery in the dark and there was dense jungle, and Li Hao was not a local. How could he have played with these local wolves? He followed for a while and then got lost, so he could only curse and walk back. On the way back, Li Hao suddenly heard a whimper in the darkness. Following the sound, he saw a wolf rolling by a small pool of water. This wolf is one of the unlucky ones whose fur was burned by the fire. Now rolling here should be using mud and water to alleviate the pain of the burn. Li Hao was overjoyed and rushed forward with his burning stick sword, startling the bald wolf. Seeing the super fierce man who had previously been defeated by dozens of wolves, Bald-Haired ran away, but Li Hao still chased closer and closer. In a hurry, Bald-Hair suddenly thought of a deep hole near the pond where the wolf pack occasionally released prey. This great ape must have dared not chase after it. Baldy ran straight over and rushed in, then turned around and stared at the entrance. Li Hao chased up to the cave and, as expected by the wolf, stopped at the entrance, afraid to venture in. Hold on. It's better to be careful when going out. Use your spiritual sense to explore the cave first. Can't you imagine it? Little Bald, even if I don't go in, I can still know the situation in the cave. I'm cheating. Li Hao exerted his spiritual consciousness and carefully perceived the situation inside the cave. Bald wolf, gravel, and some rabbit bones. The innermost part of the hole is a pile of gravel. Wait, how come there's a night pearl? Li Hao is overjoyed. At first glance, this night's pearl appears to have been artificially polished. It's impossible to say it's here. Over the course of 100 years, this pool may have dried up a bit, allowing this hole to emerge from the pool. Carrying a stick, Li Hao rushed into the cave and roared in waves. He didn't even glance at the bald man and ran straight towards the pile of broken stones. He adjusted his spiritual energy, withdrew with one palm, and the pile of gravel was scattered, leaving a gap. There was indeed another universe behind. Woo-woo. Bald Hair was startled, but still dared not attack Li Hao. He had to shout louder to convey his dissatisfaction. Oh. Are you still bald? Coincidentally, I sincerely invite you to participate in an archaeological activity with great historical value. Li Capitalist looked at Bald Hair with a sincere expression on his face. Bald Fur is a wolf and does not understand human language, but Li Hao is certain that it sacrificed itself for the great progress of archaeology. How joyful does it sound to you? Isn't this a recognition of one's own words? What an excellent New Era wolf pack successor with dedication and great love. Li Hao seized the opportunity to grab the bald neck and threw it, accurately landing in the gap of the gravel pile. Then he pushed forward and blocked the gap. Although bald, not foolish. Behind me, it was dark and not a good place to go, so I naturally didn't want to move forward. Li Hao held a stick and waved it while shouting loudly. Don't be ignorant, you wolf. How can one lie flat at a young age? Can you sleep? I suggest you explore the way obediently, there is still some vitality. If you dare to lie flat and slack off, do you think my stick can spare you? Li Hao shouted loudly, with powerful and deafening words. Bald Harry let out a few low swallows before actually turning around and slowly walking along the gap towards the inside. Is that right? Li Hao followed behind Bald Mao, exploring the secret passage step by step. Occasionally, Bald Mao refused to move forward and had to poke him 2 more sticks. As I walked along the secret passage, I estimated the time it took for a stick of incense. The night pearls on both sides gradually increased, and the secret passage also had some brightness. There are still some traps in the secret passage that have been out of repair for a long time, causing Bald Hair to scream. But these traps have long since lost their effectiveness with the passage of time, which can scare Bald Hair and instead make Li Hao even more excited. You found the right place. Moreover, judging from the appearance of this trap, it is likely that no one has repaired it for decades. There shouldn't be anyone left in the ancient tomb either. After walking for another 3 or 4 minutes, the secret passage gradually narrowed and only allowed one person to pass by in the end. At the end, Li Hao looked up at the top of his head, and indeed there was a pavilion covered with some words engraved on it. Okay. It's time to go somewhere. Li Hao was still sobbing when he saw Bald Hair, and all the hair had fallen off. It was really pitiful. It also made some contributions to this archaeological activity, so Li Hao took out the dried meat from the food he carried with him and tore it into small pieces the size of a thumb to feed it. Fortunately, I have never been a street lamp person in my past or present life. I have a kind heart. Otherwise, you would have had some to eat. Not being eaten as reserve food is considered good luck. Long dim sum. In the future, avoid people and you won't be able to play with them. Bald Hair ate all the meat and stared at Li Hao with green eyes for a while, but no longer roared. It wasn't until Li Hao became impatient and pretended to wave the wooden stick in his hand that he let out a low growl of grievance and ran along the way he came. This wolf is quite understanding of human nature. He knows how to eat people and his hands are soft. After eating my meat, he even makes a soft cry. After a moment of emotion, Li Hao took out a fire folder from his pocket and, after much effort, lit his burning sword again. He approached the pavilion board to read the text on it. End of this chapter.